Talking Pictures, a podcast where we talk about movies, TV, and all other sorts of good jazz. I am your host today, and I am joined today by David. David, how are you?
I'm good, Brian. How are you?
David, we're here to talk about an evolutional change in an entire franchise, the DCU.
An entire universe of change. Yeah, it's. I think it's high time that we talked about this. This is a long time coming.
The DCEU, and that's what it was at a time. I don't care that they soft changed it to DCU up until the James Gunn era, because I do remember at one time they did change it to DCU, but it was always DCEU. I feel like this universe started off with a solo Superman movie, with not much intention to expand it into what Marvel is doing with their universe.
Mm-hmm.
Because Zack Snyder, like, my understanding is he did Man of Steel as just, I'm going to do a Superman movie, and yeah, sure, they'll do hints and Easter eggs here and there, and 3 years later, well, we have Batman vs. Superman. I think the way DC and Warner Brothers was handling its projects, they just want to do their own franchise, and this is true. Like, you know, Universal was doing one with their monsters. M. Night Shyamalan did his one, but thank goodness he put that to an end by his own means.
Yeah,
you know, well done to him. Even Godzilla and Kong have their own, but when it comes to DCU, while it was the struggle of business and critical success, I think there is hope for it in the future. He did Man of Steel, Zack Snyder. Then he did Batman vs. Superman. And then he did in between movies such as Suicide Squad, not great. Wonder Woman, great, but probably the only one out of the lot of that whole phase. And then he did Justice League. And while I am a fanatic for Man of Steel, as I'm sure you are as well, the whole mess of it all, when it comes to Justice League and then the whole Joss Whedon cut, like, I don't want to put myself in that group where release the Snyder cut and I'm piss off Joss Whedon, or like I just like good movies. And speaking as of right now, I'm kind of fatigued about some superhero movies in some universes. So post Justice League, we got movies like Aquaman, which stood on its own, made $1 billion, great, well done. I like Jason Momoa. And then we got movies like Shazam, and then not so great Birds of Prey, and what else did we get? We got
a Wonder Woman sequel.
We got a Wonder Woman sequel. Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman, not too great. And Shazam, not too great either, in terms of box office and financials. Some of those movies, it's like they can't get a hole in one when it comes to critic success, audience love, and money.
Yeah,
it's like they only get 1 to 2 things, but not a whole. I think Wonder Woman, the first one, was the only one that got all 3.
Yeah.
Maybe Aquaman as well, because that made $1 billion. Now, I'm not really talking about movies like Joker or the Batman.
No, we're talking about the interconnected DC EU universe, where the chances of one character jumping into the next are highly likely.
And that whole system of movie making and project making is going to continue under James Gunn, the new head of DC projects. But it's like, then we get to Black Adam prior to James Gunn taking over. And while I would probably say I was on a hope banner that the DC universe would sort of be somewhat restored with Dwayne Johnson coming into the fold and essentially bringing back Henry Cavill as Superman. He was trying with an amount of effort to get Henry Cavill back, and I suppose when the old guys at Warner Brothers were kicked out the door when they were bought by Discovery, David Zaslav was in the midst of action projects such as the Wonder Twins and Batgirl. I suppose Dwayne Johnson didn't get too much hassle in sneaking in Man of Steel to sort of build a whole new direction in DCU to pin it between Dwayne Johnson and Henry Cavill. Not the best approach, because who's Black Adam compared to Superman?
He's not really a household name, is he? Black Adam or Superman, you know, it's.
And I know you are not too of the position of getting an amount of villain / anti-hero
Mhm.
movies. Like, just stick to Venom, but the fact that we've gotten Morbius and the likes of Craven the Hunter, and well, now we've Joker aside, that's a whole separate thing. Black Adam didn't work. It bombed. It was not great. It was like another movie we're going to talk about in a minute. It didn't do well critic-wise. I don't see myself watching that movie again, and so I'd just like to throw in a side note. I thought James Gunn's Suicide Squad was great, and Peacemaker was great. James Gunn's projects, henceforth, maybe we do have something to look forward to in the future. But before we get to discussing the future of the DCU in a whole new direction and the promises that we can hope for and the confusion we still have at this moment, we just saw the latest DCEU movie. Probably one of the last 2 or 3 we're going to get prior to James Gunn taking over. Shazam Fury of the Gods. So we saw that, and I wasn't going to see it. I wasn't so much appealed to watching it in the cinema. You asked me to come see it, and sure, I'll go for a hangout. I enjoy seeing movies in the cinema, so long as they're, good. When the movie was over, it's like, didn't we just do this before? Like, plenty of times. We're 20 years into Hollywood making superhero movies, creating its own genre. And it's like, what have you done for me lately? What have you got new for me?
Yeah.
But if it's not going to be good, like just a real good movie, then do something different. I don't think Shazam did anything great. And I was trying to think now, why is this not good? In my opinion, I didn't think it was good. Is it the villains that just feel like early 2000s? Was it the childish nature of it? Like the fact that these are kids? Maybe not. Is there an element of CW in there that's off-putting? Is it a simple fact that a kid goes around a tiny structure on a roof as if he's, making a phone call to, hey, I'm going to call my buddy, the superhero guy, and then just because he's behind that little mini structure on top of the roof, I suppose he's just at that side of the building now, and that side of the roof, and I can't see. And all of a sudden, the superhero guy shows up. It's like a whole classic switch and move. It's like Robin Williams in Miss Doubtfire going to the bathroom to change, coming back to the separate table, goes back to the bathroom, comes back again to the other table where he's himself. And it's like, first of all, I don't even feel the need to talk about spoilers. I don't know if that's worth it. Do you want to talk spoilers?
Yeah, I mean, there's not really, I don't think, too much to spoil in the movie. Like, realistically, what is there to spoil?
I think anything to spoil was already spoiled by the marketing.
Yeah, like, even at that, I'm struggling to think of anything that is a spoiler. There's nothing big.
They did reveal someone in the market.
Oh yeah, Wonder Woman's in it.
Yeah,
that that's.
And funny enough, that was probably my favorite part. Why? Because the Wonder Woman music came on. And oh yeah, Gal Gadot. She's great, and I like her as Wonder Woman. But the music really got me. Like, it's like
it's a good theme. Yeah, it's a good. That theme's better than most of the movie.
And the setup by the previous Shazam movie with Mark Strong, that was continued to be led as a setup for, I don't know, a Shazam 3. Like, that'll happen. I'll be surprised if it would. I'll come back here to listen to this podcast to say that, well, is there going to be a Shazam 3? I don't care. And I feel bad for Zachary Levi because I think he'd be good for an ensemble. I think he'd fit right into the likes of a Justice League team. But we're not going to get that because the DCU has just, as I said earlier, been struggling.
Yeah,
on and on.
I think it has from Batman versus Superman. And I think you said it best there with one word in your opening monologue there, that you said it's a mess. And it is a mess. It still is, yeah, and it has been the entire time after Man of Steel, which kind of was conceived as an individual story.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden everyone saw the huge Avengers, literally the first Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Saw that it made over $1 billion, and they were like, oh, what's our version of that? And like you said, that's the new theme at the minute, is franchise and universe and connective tissue, and having characters move from one movie to the next. And I think DC definitely went and said, okay, what characters we have, where can we put them? And instead of creating actual good stories and cohesive stories and, you know, maybe having a character between, they just wanted to, you know, they wanted to cash in as much as possible straight away. And that was their downfall, because you had a Man of Steel and then Batman versus Superman featuring Wonder Woman with cameos from The Flash, Cyborg and Aquaman.
Very ambitious.
Like, you're throwing everything at the wall and just seeing what sticks. And I think the major downfall of the DC universe is having no one at the head of the table with any kind of vision. There's no one with okay.
There's no Kevin Feige.
Exactly, yeah. There was, Zack Snyder had that a little bit, but unfortunately he was let down. Obviously he had his own family matters that led him to step down from his directing duties of Justice League, but
he's a director. He's not a studio head. He's Zack Snyder. He has his own style and vision. Mm-hmm. All the other individual movies from Marvel, they all have their own separate themes, but within a guideline of Kevin Feige. Imagine Taika Waititi being the Kevin Feige of Marvel, or essentially Joss Whedon being, you need someone who's the executive team to manage that, and they sort of tried to do that with this guy Walter Hamada, but that apparently he was not given any power overall. He was just part of a committee. It was all about.
Was it Walter Hamada that had a lot of issues with Ray Fisher as well? I think with Justice League. And
my understanding is Ray Fisher had issues with Walter Hamada, but the bulk of that comes down to Joss Whedon. Even Gal Gadot had issues with that as well. So I don't even want to dwell in on that.
No, but he wasn't a good person to have at the top of the table leading this.
He had the option to be offered the job, I think, before James Gunn taking it. He didn't want it. Another guy who was asked, another Asian American, he didn't want it because he had his own company he wanted to continue. I think, look, I said it here earlier, the Suicide Squad with James Gunn and Peacemaker are great shows. I've liked all his Guardians movies, and I've liked his previous movie that I suppose that put him on the map, Slither. That was great. I'm looking forward to him taking over and seeing what he's got shown for me. Now, I'd like to hear what you have to say when it comes to universe building and keeping it all consistent. We can get into that now in a minute in terms of the upcoming slate, but we can start by adding to our confusion. What's the status with the heroes like Shazam, Aquaman, Wonder Woman? Because we know Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill are done as Batman and Superman. Blue Beetle is not released yet, and that's coming out this summer. So maybe that's a fails. Like that's a either or, give or take. It depends which is which. Like, and that was bumped up to be a theatrical release as opposed to a Disney Plus, Disney Plus HBO Max release. Evil Dead Rise was the same, and I think Batgirl was the same, but we're not going to get that.
Yeah.
And then we have The Flash as well. And James Gunn said that this is going to reset the universe. But
I don't know. It's like a soft reboot.
How are you going to reset this movie? Is it going to end with a bright flash of light, like with the Flash running into it? And okay, I saved the day, but at this cost of a sacrifice. So who knows what we'll have next? And then are you just going to fade to white, cut to black? We'll see the Flash again, portrayed by a new actor. I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't even care that you're using this movie to reset it. Just give us a good movie, because I'm hearing all the same. I hear Tom Cruise says this movie's fantastic.
Yeah. To be like, if I were James Gunn, I wouldn't be putting one foot in one world, one foot in the other. I would just commit to creating a new universe, and I would have pushed Flash all the way to the end of this year. Have the movies that are release. Shazam, Aquaman, Blue Beetle, and then The Flash. And just Flash be a soft reboot. No, a hard reboot. And just move forward from there. And like, I think the reason why he's doing it is because of his Suicide Squad and his Peacemaker,
And
him wanting to carry those characters over. And that just doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't, it seems like he's too attached to his own projects that he's shooting himself in the foot. Because you can, if you want to have some actors portray the same characters, that's fine. Like, let's take, for example, the MCU. Who do we have playing J. Jonah Jameson back in the early 2000s? J.K. Simmons. Who plays J. Jonah Jameson in the MCU? Oh, it's J.K. Simmons. And that's just fine. There's no...
That's almost an afterthought.
Like nobody is thinking like, oh my God, is this the same universe at all? And it's like, no, it's just the same actor. He's just the best actor for the role. And that's fine. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you were to just come along and make your Waller TV show with Viola Davis as Amanda Waller,
yeah,
that's fine. Nobody's going to question that. Like, people would just be like, oh, she's the best person for the role. No one's going to be like, oh, it is connected to this, this, and this. It's like, no, we're starting a new universe, and she's just the best actress for the role.
Yeah.
But to have, like, this mismatch of, like, oh, Aquaman is still going to be played by Jason Momoa, or maybe not. And then, like, Wonder Woman is maybe still Gal Gadot. But no, Superman is definitely someone different, and we're going to have our own Batman. It just seems weird to try and have your cake and eat it too. It's like, either... don't reboot it and just let these movies come out and then course direct completely.
Yeah.
But keep the same actors because you've committed to it, or hard reboot. And I think it's funny because we were supposed to talk about Shazam. We haven't really talked about it at all. Shazam is like a real nothing of a movie. Like you said there, we're 20 years in, but it did nothing new at all in any way. It just felt like it was another addition to the DC universe, where it's like, oh yeah, we can reference other characters, and like, it makes sense. All the kids are like into superheroes. That's like, the superheroes are a thing in this universe. But it just felt like, oh yeah, let's throw in the Batman logo, throw in the Superman logo. Oh, here's Wonder Woman. And it just felt like it was like, oh yeah, just another product of this DC universe of trying to connect to things that don't really deserve it.
Yeah, I've like a few things to follow up on that. It's in an ideal world where the DCU is thriving. Oh, cool! Wonder Woman showed up.
Yeah, those are big events then.
And
yeah.
that was a major. Doctor Strange showing up in Thor Ragnarok was a big deal.
Yes, 100%.
That is a big deal.
Bruce Banner turning up at the end of Iron Man 3, like seeing, having a living, breathing universe felt right in the MCU, but DC. It just, nothing feels earned. It's like, okay, why are they there? You can have the vaguest of threads with Shazam that, oh yeah, Wonder Woman is Greek and these were Greek bad guys.
Yeah.
So that's why she's there. And it's like, that's the only really reason why she's there at all. She's nothing to do with the story other than that, other than Billy fancies her.
This is an interesting concept, but why is it just not doing it? Does it lend itself more to being R-rated in the fact that these are children as superheroes? Make that sort of raunchy a little, or make it R-rated. I don't know. That can't be the problem, because this movie's not doing well. Shazam is not doing well financially.
No. I think it lost a lot of what made the first one good. The first one was good because you had obviously just Shazam, one of them, being the superhero, and it was seeing a kid learn to be a superhero with all the powers. But in this one, there was none of that at all. I felt like, to be honest, Zachary Levi's portrayal of Shazam was way more childish than the younger actor. What's his name?
Asher Angel.
Asher Angel, yeah. He felt more grown up than Zachary Levi when he was young Billy. But most of the time, it is Zachary Levi. He doesn't spend a lot of time as his kid self.
See, even the first movie, I thought that there was such a barrier between Asher Angel as Billy and Zachary as Shazam. It's like the Darth Vader and Anakin. It's like that. It's the same thing. Like, there's no connection that they're the same two. And now it felt like they're trying to recoup that a bit. I didn't. I loved the trail of the Shazam when it came out. The first movie, but I only gave it 3 stars on Letterboxd. It was fine.
The first one at least had a good story of, like, with Billy and his mother, and like him finding out that maybe the family that he was born with isn't as good as the family that you can make, and he comes to find, the Shazam family are his real family as opposed to his biological mother who threw him out. But in this one, what was the arc for the character at all? That he learned to call his foster mom, and the only time that was referenced was at the beginning when he didn't say it, and at the end when he did say it. There was no actual progression with that character, with his mom, with his foster mom, that would make any change whatsoever.
I think if you're to do Shazam, sort of Deadpool it, in the sense that Deadpool was so new when it came out. It was so limited, but it could have scope. I don't know why I'm comparing this, because I haven't even seen the movie yet, but I'm comparing the new Hellboy movie that they're making with this guy, Jack Casey, with Hellboy, the Crooked Man. I don't know why. I feel like we'll come back to this podcast when the movie's released, but I feel like this new Hellboy has the potential to be what Deadpool did for, I suppose, the X-Men franchise.
Yeah.
I don't know why I feel like that. Maybe because it feels more simplified.
I suppose, yeah, that's kind of what Deadpool is like. It is on a much smaller budget compared to the X-Men movies, and it is like a reinvigorization.
And it takes the mick of itself.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like, especially after watching Black Adam, I think people were put off by that. I think Shazam Fury of the Gods, it just feels too plain, too generic, too paint by the numbers, too tick the boxes.
Too safe.
Yeah.
There's nothing new in it whatsoever. There was no arc really for any character.
It felt quite close to CW. Not that CW is a bad thing, it has its audiences, but look, when I want to watch, I suppose, a DC movie, even an Avengers or good, strong Marvel movie, I want to feel the emotion of, let's say, Man of Steel gave us. So, yeah, Shazam, Fear of the Gods didn't do it for us.
Well, I suppose let's stop looking at the past, and we'll look at some of the future projects that have us coming up, and we can talk a little bit about kind of how excited we are, or I don't even know. But
the first half of, I suppose, phase volume slate 1 that James Gunn has created.
So this will be the first projects coming out with a creative head behind them. So we would hope that these would have not so much a running thread, but building towards something.
Yeah,
as these universes tend to do, a la your big Avengers and your big Justice League ensemble movies.
And James Gunn is directing the first one.
Yeah, so we have Superman Legacy. So this is the first solo Superman movie since Man of Steel 2013. So and this is releasing 2025. So a good 12 years since. And
I'm gonna compare it the hell out of Zack Snyder's Superman movie. Not that that's a bad thing. I just thought, James Gunn, Zack Snyder, like those two, like they also had just his Snyder Cut and the Justice League. It's like that Suicide Squad movie that were coming out in the same year. I don't know. I just fancy comparing them two, and I think it's interesting that James Gunn's doing Superman. I think he's going to do it very well. I think he's going to do a good one.
I think I'm hesitant for it. Yeah? I think James Gunn wouldn't have been my first choice, whatever about writing it, but he wouldn't be my first choice to direct it. But we'll see. I saw his post about how he said that he kind of he actually initially didn't want to direct it, but he realized that when his father died, that he actually connected with the story a lot more in a different way.
Really?
So that's why he wants to direct it, is because it's kind of balancing. He wants to show the differences between, I think it's like Superman's parents on Krypton and then Clark's parents on Earth in Kansas.
If he can make me just emotional watching a Superman movie, great.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I fell in love with Superman because of Man of Steel, sure, give it to us again.
The next movie we have on the slate is The Authority, which, I'll be honest with you, I have no idea who they are. I've never heard of them until I heard this announcement.
Same. And I have high hopes and high critical desires for this movie to be a certain something, especially since he's building a universe.
I think it's important to note that the Guardians of the Galaxy were not a household name until James Gunn directed Guardians of the Galaxy.
Exactly.
They were a joke of a team and no one had ever heard of them. And I remember it being touted as, oh, this will be Marvel's first flop. This will be the first one that's not going to be good. And it blew it out of the water. And I know I can safely say for myself, I think I can safely say for you, Guardians Volume 3 is one of the most highly anticipated movies for us this year. Number one for you. There you go. So tune in soon for an episode on that when that comes out. So, but you know, I'll temper my expectations. I mean, I don't have any expectations, but I'll keep an eye on this one to see how it goes. But it's you know, James Gunn does well, I suppose, with these team movies because he did both Guardians and the Suicide Squad.
What I want from the Authority is because they're in the comics conceived as villains.
Mm-hmm.
People, they're a Justice League like team trying to do what they believe to be good in, I suppose, a very menacing way.
Mm-hmm.
And well, Superman is brought in there to correct them. So what I want from the Authority, I want, I suppose, the leader or our protagonist to be someone we can root for and die at the end of the movie. Betrayed by his team, killed by the members of the Authority, and the Authority are like the bad guys for someone like Superman to fight against.
Yeah.
Like, give us something new. Have our hero die. Conceive this hero to be someone to be introduced, follow, enjoy, like, and die at the end of it.
Yeah.
Like, that's something different. Like, I feel like that can be something more different than Superman Legacy. And I also think this next one, Supergirl.
Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow.
I have more hopes for that than I do for Superman Legacy because my understanding is Supergirl, the one under James Gunn's creation, it's like Superman is raised by loving parents on a farm where Supergirl was born and raised on a rock.
Mm-hmm.
So she comes to Earth and she's like sad and depressed, and she's the powers of the god. So don't cross her. I look. We don't even know what a story could be yet, but I want there to be mixed emotions in terms of enjoying Supergirl as a character. So I'm looking forward to that quite a bit. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I am looking forward to it. I like Supergirl. I watched the whole CW series for Supergirl. I think she's a good character. I think she's an interesting character exactly for the reasons you said there, that, you know, Superman is brought up from infancy with his powers and with the tutelage of his Earth parents and learning to kind of live in both worlds of what do you do. I suppose the Spider-Man mantra of with great power comes great responsibility. Like, if you are able to fly and beat all the kids at running and have super strength, you can't just go and show them up. So he has this whole lifestyle. But what if, you know, Supergirl just turns up and she has all these powers and she hasn't had that tutelage?
I like that. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, that's what I expect from the comparisons of James Gunn Superman and his Supergirl. That's what I want them to be.
Mm-hmm. I want them to be almost two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and make it just hit my emotions. Come at me. That's what I want. I want to feel bad for Supergirl. I want her, you know, bawling, crying in the rain because she's that's the hand she's been dealt with. Imagine that. It's like Luke raised in the dirt of Tatooine, and Leia raised in such royalty and such glamour. You know? Yeah, it's like, well, look what you got dealt with.
Yeah, that's a good point actually to compare the two. Like, yeah, that one is raised in, you know, a great environment, whereas, you know, Supergirl could have been, you know, floating through space and having to deal with monsters her entire life.
Yeah,
and then to turn up, because I think that's actually a good point that the CW show made, was that when they both left Krypton, Clark was a baby and Kara was a teenager or a young, you know, preteen.
Yeah, she's older.
Yeah, she's older. But then when she arrives at Earth, Clark is fully grown and she's still a teenager. So it's like, oh, I was the older person, and now you're Superman.
Yeah.
And now she has to live up to him,
Yeah.
even though she's older. So I think it's an interesting dynamic. Definitely.
I want an element of it's not fair to play into that. Like it's not fair. Like that's what I want from, like, I'm getting excited about this.
You've honestly actually pushed this to the top of my list now.
Yeah.
Just talking about this. Yeah.
Wow. What's the next one?
The next one we have is The Brave and the Bold. So we're going to be introduced to our new DCU's Batman and Robin.
But it's not about Batman. It's about Robin.
It's mostly going to feature, I think it's mostly centered around Robin, and by Robin I mean Damian Wayne, which is Bruce's son.
The fifth Robin, I think, is he?
He is the fourth or fifth. I think he's the fourth male Robin, but I think there was a female Robin. I can't remember her name.
The fourth being the females. That's why I think he's the fifth.
Yeah.
Because there's Dick, Jason, Tim, the girl. Sorry, I don't know her name, and Damian.
Yeah.
So, okay. We're introduced to the Bat family in this one.
I don't want a big extended Bat family from the get-go. I'd like to see, my hopes for that are like a good father-son dynamic with Batman and Damian, mirrored by a strained father-son dynamic with Batman and Nightwing.
Oh, that's actually interesting. That is like contrast to what I'm wanting to just give us the whole shebang.
You want everyone.
Well,
I want Batwoman, I want Oracle, I want everyone.
Everyone by give us a couple of Robins who are like, who are not living up to the standards of what Batman wants, and here comes Damian, his son, who's, well, maybe I can be your, Robin, and then let's see. I'm being bold with this one, but
you're being the brave and the bold.
What I mean by bold is in kill Damian Wayne.
You want Damian dead?
I want Damian to die at the end of this.
Jeez Louise, he's only introduced and you're already killing him.
But you introduce Batman. He's going to be the similar screen time presence that I would imagine Michael Keaton is going to be in the upcoming Flash, because it's going to be about Damian Wayne. Whether he's too bold for Batman standards or he's too soft for Batman standard, whatever that will be, trying to live up to Batman himself, have him meet his fortune misend at the end of it all, and let that be a consequence for Batman to further continue in movies to come. Maybe that softens him up, or maybe that bulges him down even more, because Robert Pattinson's Batman is likely to sort of soften up a bit, because that's his lesson to learn at the end of that movie. So just contrast it a bit more. I was thinking, who's my favourite Batman? I think it's Christian Bale, because I think Batman works the best because he's on his own. Whereas when it comes to a Batman like Ben Affleck, well, he's probably the Batman to win in a fight, because he's fighting against aliens and monsters, and it's very supernatural and very extraterrestrial based. Whereas I'd imagine this upcoming James Gunn Batman would be. So, like, that's the difference. And so try and keep it fresh. Don't turn it into something like what we were complaining earlier with Shazam. Give us something different. Even Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam couldn't do that. You want us to think Black Adam, oh, he's hard. Well, tell us.
Prove it.
We'll be getting into 25 years of minimum 25 years of superhero movies, and a good lot of them feature Batman. Well, give us something new. We'll already have 2 Batman movie projects on the go, so that's why I'm looking for something extra. Maybe it's not to kill a certain pivotal character in said movie, but make it something. That's what I'm looking for.
The last movie on the slate, because there's a few TV series, we'll run through those very quickly. But the last movie on the slate is Swamp Thing, which is designed to be a horror movie. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm excited that we're gonna like dip into more genre heavy stuff. I think that's a good direction to go. Is that is doing stuff in a certain genre and mixing it up a little bit, not just having a straight up action adventure movie. I think a horror movie would be actually a little bit of a breath of fresh air and I think it could be actually a lot more accessible for other audiences as well. Just to have like, oh, this new horror movie. It just so happens that it is also based in the DC universe.
And it's not
doesn't have to be.
It's not an Elseworld.
No, and it's connected to everything. And I think that's a good way to be, is that if it's accessible for most audiences, then later on when Swamp Thing, if he appears later on, it's like, oh, I actually saw that movie. I didn't even realize, because it's not branded as a superhero movie or a supervillain movie or anything like that. It's just a good horror movie. And I think if James Gunn was smart, he would work with Blumhouse on that one in some capacity. Because I know that he worked with James Wan, did Aquaman, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he was supposed to do a horror movie, The Trench. But
that was like the old Warner Brothers doing their whole thing. Oh, reaction, quick, change everything. It's like that and many other projects that old Warner Brothers was trying to do.
Yeah.
Like it never went past development.
No.
Like, cool. That scene in Aquaman was great. Let's make a movie.
Let's make a whole movie based on one scene. No. We'll move on then to the TV shows, and this is where we were talking about with James Gunn keeping his foot in two worlds here, because we have a TV show called Creature Commandos, which is an animated series. We didn't even really talk about the fact that James Gunn's plan is to have actors play the same character across all of, it's a real transmedia thing, that he wants them in the movies, the TV shows, the video games, like everything.
Well, I actually foreshadowed this in our podcast, so we're good storytellers here. Because I suggested earlier that, how do you feel about universe building under James Gunn now? Because
this is where you were coming to ask me.
I remember you said, so actors like Tara Strong, who voices someone like, let's say, Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Well, Harley Quinn from now on has to be
Margot Robbie.
Yeah. So Margot Robbie has to voice Harley Quinn going forward in animation, unless it's the Katie Kyoko from Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy show.
Yeah.
And that's a good show. Don't change that. That's doing great. Leave it alone. But look, that's ambition.
I think it's a really ambitious, and I think it's a good idea if it was a different time period. I think if you were doing this back in the 90s, yeah, that's reasonable. But now that's just not possible. If you like actually know what it takes to be a voice actor, take, like, for example, there, Tara Strong, that she voices Harley Quinn in animated stuff and video games. It's not like having Margot Robbie on set for the 2 weeks. Like, you're going to need to put her in the booth doing grunts and like, huh, ha, and saying lines for multiple different things. And it's just not feasible that Margot Robbie would do that for the fee that Tara Strong would do it for. It's not, I don't think it's, and then it's also taking work away from voice actors.
Yeah. I picture every character in DC that Nolan North or Troy Baker has voiced. Yeah. So going forward, if you want certain characters to be voiced in animation to then be transferred later, you're not going to get them because they're not traditional actors; they're voice actors.
You'll never get Mark Hamill as Joker ever again because of this. If this is the way it goes, I think it is a nice idea, but it's just fundamentally flawed, and I don't think it is. I really don't like the Hollywoodization of voice actors. And it's just getting, let's just get a name in rather than actually a good voice actor.
I've never seen something like this done before, aside from what they've done with Star Wars and The Mandalorian and Rebels, and maybe the whole Legacy sequel and reboot, everything except the original era and biopic of musicians. I think this is a new trend that's going to stick eventually soon once it's popularized by Warner Brothers. But hey, look, give it a go. It's another ragtag ensemble team. I dig those. That's probably my favorite thing when it comes to movies. I love a good ragtag. Kill half of them or all of them at the end. Yeah, make me emotional. That's what I love about James Gunn. He's like, someone asks him on Twitter, "You better not kill this character in this movie," and he replies, "If I'm gonna cry right in their death, you have to cry watching it." So
I do actually like the fact that James Gunn is fully like out there dispelling rumors.
Yeah.
Like if someone puts a rumor up, he's like, nope, that's not true. And he just like, it just like shuts down this rumor mill that I actually hate of seeing like, oh, this person possibly cast in this. And then just someone come in and say, yeah, no, that's not true. I'm like, oh, I thank God. He's actually a godsend for that. I really do appreciate his no nonsense. Like, no, that's not true. If you didn't hear from me, then it's not true. And it's like, yeah, that's great. I wish Kevin Feige would do that as well. I'm so sick of seeing stuff from Marvel that's just like not true.
What's the next TV show coming out?
The next one is Waller.
Waller. So to top off on what you said there, when someone asks him, is Peacemaker 2 dead? He's like, nope, working on Waller. Doing that first before I move on to doing another season of Peacemaker. Mm-hmm. Aside from, having Superman Legacy done. So Waller is like a continuation from Peacemaker. So at least they'll have to go for some life in the environment that Peacemaker takes place in, because that's quite an entertainment show. But what are they going to do with Waller? I don't know. I actually don't care, but I'll enjoy it when it comes out. But mm-hmm. I've no opinion to grant that. Like, no, I'm looking forward to Creature Commandos because of the concept. Waller, what are you going to do with Waller? Seriously, what are you going to do with Waller? Mate, mm-hmm. Are you going to make it a story where she's actually left to fend for herself because she's no team to do her dirty work? She has to do the work herself. Okay, cool. Maybe that'll be something worth it. But until we get some info.
Yeah, it's kind of low down on the list for anticipation. Well, we'll move from my least anticipated to actually my most anticipated TV series, which is Booster Gold, which is, I've always liked the concept of Booster Gold. I think that it's high time we finally get to see him, but he's basically a time-traveling superhero. So he takes the technology from the 51st century, I think he is, and he comes back to be a superhero in our time. I just think that's such a funny idea, and it's a great, like, that he would know the trends of today because he's from the 51st century.
Do it right, you could get something really good into it. Mm-hmm. Picture, it's like something Ryan Reynolds would do.
I was literally going to say it can be akin to Deadpool in that way, like the comedy. I think you could do that in a way that's like breaking the fourth wall as well.
I know you wouldn't like Chris Pratt playing him, but it's like, if not Ryan Reynolds, Chris Pratt's the next one to do it. Not saying that it's limited to, of course, you can get anyone to play it. Mm-hmm. Like, you get your man Glenn Powell to play it.
He's good. I like him from Top Gun Maverick. Yeah, I like him.
I just shot him out of the mind. But like, it's an interesting concept. It's a good comedy one.
Yeah,
like, it's a good one.
Yeah,
I think it can be something new, something different. Mm-hmm. Nothing to go off about. Like, I don't know what it could be, but like, this guy I want to be superhero. Okay, but yeah, maybe he's portrayed somewhat as a celebrity, if anything.
Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of the joke about him, is that even though he is a superhero, he doesn't get famous. He desperately wants to be a superhero to be famous. Yeah, but he can't. He just can't seem to get it.
Looking forward to seeing how that comes about. We're probably like 5 years away from getting it.
Yeah, I'd say we're a good while, but I mean, there's loads of stuff to come. We have the two last projects here. Are Lanterns, which has been described as a bit of a True Detective Green Lantern TV show, which is interesting to compare,
The interesting thing I'm looking forward to that is who they're going to cast.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I need to know. It's like you'll probably get fan-made images of Matthew McConaughey and Mahershala Ali as Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart,
And then the last one we have here is Paradise Lost, which is another TV show that's kind of based on Themyscira, so the land of Wonder Woman, where she comes from. That one, I think if they go with a kind of Game of Thrones style version for that, I think that could be interesting as well. Like, have not so many like pivotal characters, but still like create this good world.
If they want to really commit to change, they'll put an element of Game of Thrones into it. Mm-hmm. I think if they're going to do an R-rated, or they're going to keep it as politically intriguing, go for it.
Yeah.
But there's not much to go on about. So, look, I think that's all the list. Like, and that's only part one of slate volume thing, whatever they're going to do until we start getting into motion into seeing these movies. Mm-hmm. So that was quite a bit of talk
An extra
to DC and the status it's come from. But
we're trying to talk about the past, the present, and the future, so it's going to be an extra long episode. But thanks so much for sticking with us through it.
This concludes our episode of Talking Pictures podcast. If you'd like to follow us, please do so on Instagram, Talking Pictures Pod. Send us an email on talkingpicturespodcast1@gmail.com. If you have any questions, any requests, any curiosities, please send us them.
Let us know what you're most looking forward to in the new DC lineup.
If you like us talking about this type of nonsense, please do. And please give us 5 stars if you can. Give us 6 if you want. Don't give us 7. Don't like odd numbers. So maybe just give us 6, not 4. Because I'm just contradicting myself.
5 stars, please.
5 stars, please. David, thank you.
Thanks, Brian.